In May 2022, Chelsea Football Club were bought by American billionaire Todd Boehly after being sold by Roman Abramovich. Roman Abramovich, who was a very, very, very well loved and very well thought of member of the Chelsea family. Since buying the club in May of 2022, Todd Boehly has signed 39 players, spending €1.3 billion. That is more than some Premier League clubs have ever spent in 2 years. Now, some of those signings were made for the future, like Esteval or Kendry. Some of those signings have went on to be absolutely fantastic buys, like Cole Palmer. Some of those signings have been really unlucky with injuries, like Romeo Lavia and Christopher Nkunku. And some of those signings have been absolutely horrendous, like Robert Sanchez and Raheem Sterling. But how is this ridiculous transfer system actually working at Chelsea? Is it a complete positive? Do we just need to give it time and it'll work out? Is Todd Boehly secretly a mastermind? Or are Chelsea being ran by a complete and utter moron who's sinking the club into the ground? I actually think it's somewhere in the middle. I don't think Todd Boehly is at all running Chelsea into the ground. However, I don't think he's found some new amazing transfer system to outdo every other club in Europe. I feel like he's trying to do two things at once too extremely. And that, in short, is what we're going to cover today. Now, this is a page showing all of the players that are currently at Chelsea. You'll have seen a lot of people talking lately. The most famous one so far has been Jamie Carragher, who had a massive rant about all of the players that are currently at Chelsea and how the squad is far too big. Whilst they do have a massive squad, it's nowhere near as bad as people are making it out to be. So let's run through this, shall we? Starting with the goalkeepers, Bergstrom and Beach are youth team goalkeepers. Petrovic and Arrizabalaga are both expected to leave the club, which just leaves Sanchez, Jorgensen and Bentinelli. 3 goalkeepers for a squad is pretty normal. Moving into the fullbacks, Ben Chilwell has basically been told to find a new club, so that only leaves 4 fullbacks, 2 left-backs and 2 right-backs, which is pretty normal. Alfie Gilchrist has already left on loan to Sheffield United. Bashir Humphries has already left on loan to Burnley. Achimpong is a youth player, and Trevor Chalobah has been told to find a new team, which just leaves Disasi, Adarabioyo, Badiashile, Colwill and Fofana. Going into the midfield, Angerin will probably be expected to leave the club by now, but he's a youth team player anyway. Kadesi is also expected to leave the club, whether it's on loan or being sold. Ugachukwu has been loaned to Southampton, and Kellyman will probably be loaned if not spending the season with the youth team. As for the wingers, and Gabriel has already been told that he's probably going on loan. George is a youth team player, and Sterling's been told pretty much that he's up for sale. And finally, with the strikers, Fofana and Lukaku have both been told they're leaving the club. Broja's meant to be going to Ipswich, and David Washington will probably go on loan if not spend the season with the youth team, which just leaves Guiu, Nkunku and Jackson. Now, all of these players that you can see here gives Chelsea a total squad that will actually feature this year of 24 players. Now, João Felix is signed, he's not on this list, so we'll up that to 25. And let's assume that Chelsea get the Victor Osimhen deal over the line, which has been, very, very, very heavily hinted at. That makes 26. 26 players in a squad of a team that's playing in the Premier League, the English League Cup, the FA Cup, the Club World Cup and the UEFA Conference League is a perfectly reasonably sized squad. Now, obviously, this all depends on Chelsea being able to actually sell a lot of players, such as Petrovic and Arrizabalaga, Ben Chilwell, Trevor Chalobah, Armando Broja, Datro Fofana and Romelu Lukaku being probably the biggest one, alongside Raheem Sterling. And I've seen a lot of people saying that they feel a bit bad for the way people like Raheem Sterling's being treated. I can understand people feeling bad for the likes of Conor Gallagher and Trevor Chalobah, younger players who've came through the Chelsea Academy and gave their all for the club. I can see people feeling sorry for them, but not the likes of Sterling and Lukaku. Lukaku's been nothing but a troublemaker.
I'm only being paid £325,000 a week. I want to go back to Inter.
Shut your fucking mouth! Shut the fuck up, you cunt!
And Sterling Yeah, he's incredibly overhated by the English media, but, you know, he's on a lot of money at Chelsea, and apart from maybe the first 6 months of when he joined, he has been relatively pants for a long time at Chelsea. Now, as I previously mentioned, Todd Boehly bought the club in 2022. This was because long-time owner Roman Abramovich had to sell the club due to the war going on in Ukraine, basically. Now, pretty much a year before Todd Boehly bought the club, Chelsea won the Champions League. This meant that they had basically a really good squad, and everyone expected that they would become the third team in the sort of challenge on Manchester City, which really only Liverpool were able to do. Roman Abramovich expected that Thomas Tuchel's side would also be able to do this, and that all they were missing was a striker. That's why he went and bought Romelu Lukaku for over £100 million. This didn't end up happening, but Todd Boehly wanted to keep the idea that Chelsea were going to be basically back to being a powerhouse within English football. And he thought the best way to do that was to spend the money to bring in what he deemed were world-class quality players. That's why we've seen the likes of Enzo Fernandez, Moses Caicedo come in for absolutely massive fees, alongside lots and lots and lots of other players. He also wanted to keep the idea of the Chelsea DNA that had been established under Abramovich, which was basically that if you didn't succeed as a manager, you wouldn't be given a long time in the job. Abramovich would rarely let managers go more than a year or 2 years without winning something, and for as much as everyone criticised this, for Abramovich this clearly worked. Chelsea under his ownership won multiple league titles, 2 Champions Leagues, Club World Cups, European Super Cups, multiple FA Cups, multiple League Cups, 2 Europa Leagues. They won basically everything there was to win. In fact, until the Europa Conference League was invented, Chelsea had won literally every trophy available to them in club football, all of which had been won under Roman Abramovich. So his system, his model clearly worked really well, but Abramovich demanded the best. Abramovich was also pretty, shrewd and pretty not careful, but very calculated in his signings. He didn't just go and spend massive fees on massive name players basically for the sake of it. He was also really good at bringing in young players, which is stuff that Todd Boehly has tried to replicate. Now, to be fair to Todd Boehly, a lot of his signings have actually, on paper at least, made a lot of sense and looked really, really good. Players like Nkunku, Neto, even the likes of Fernandez. Everyone forgets when they say, Fernandez, it was too soon to pay that amount of money. Fernandez had just played basically every game as a vital player in Argentina winning the World Cup. And yeah, look, Boehly's not got it right with a lot of things. However, a lot of clubs really wish that their owners would do the types of things that Boehly does, and what I mean by that is Boehly's not afraid to go and actually spend the money. Yeah, the argument is he's spending too much money, but he's not afraid to go and actually try and make something of the team. I think the biggest issue with Todd Boehly is what I said earlier. He's trying to do too much too quickly. Trying to copy the Pep Guardiola system, it seems, now with Enzo Maresca, and before that he wanted something kind of similar under Graham Potter. And obviously Pochettino was there in between, which it just didn't really work. He'd started bringing in really good signings, and you could see where he was going when he appointed Potter. Now, Potter didn't work out, and I still believe Potter was kept at Chelsea too long. He should have been sacked a lot earlier. Pochettino, I think, was actually a decent appointment. And for as much as Pochettino started really poorly, towards the end of the season, he'd actually started to build something. Now, what Boehly should have done was continue to have Pochettino as the manager and buy less players but better players for the positions that they needed. Specifically, I think Chelsea desperately needed a striker, a centre-back and a goalkeeper. If he had done that and kept Pochettino, it would have been a great chance for the Chelsea squad to continue to build. They had enough really, really good young players. They didn't need to go and buy 20 more. It would be better that there was more focus on just preparing for Esteval and Kendry coming to the club next season, who are looked at as if they have the potential to be generational talents. Instead, however, he deemed that Pochettino wasn't good enough, or whatever went on behind the scenes. Pochettino lost his job basically, and he's continued to have another summer of spending far too much money, with a new manager. Realistically, in my opinion, what Todd Boehly and what Chelsea should really be doing is just appointing someone who has a proven track record, someone who knows what they're doing. I honestly believe that bringing Jose Mourinho back this summer would have been a great idea. And Boehly's willingness to spend a lot of money is not a bad thing, and it's not a bad thing either that Chelsea clearly have some great scouts out there looking for great talents. But instead of just going, oh, Cucurella's had one amazing season at Brighton, we'll sign him. Pedro Neto is an amazing player when he's actually available for Wolves. João Felix was one spot for a massive fee and we can get him relatively cheap to that fee, still relatively young. We'll buy all these players that have all these hidden faults or hidden conditions that might not make them seem as good as what they are. Instead of doing that, just appoint a manager who has a proven track record, who basically knows what they're doing, and give them this free will spending. Let Pochettino bring in his own players instead of assuming that you know what the best players to bring in are, because chances are you don't. A manager needs players that fit their system. And had Boehly focused more on doing this, I think he would end up with a lot more success. Obviously, it's too soon to say. A lot of the big signings that Chelsea have made are players who are far too young to write off yet, they're far too young to judge. The amount of people I see that say Fernandes and Caicedo especially were wastes of money, there's just no way you can say that. The two of them still have well over 10 years of their careers left, and majority of that is contracted at Chelsea. But yeah, just to conclude, I don't think Chelsea are in anywhere near as bad a position as maybe some people want them to be. Certainly not as bad a position as what some people think they are, and I think that over the next couple of years especially, you're going to see Chelsea, a lot of the players Chelsea sign, really kick on. Some of them will undoubtedly fail, but I think a lot of them will succeed. And I mean, hey, in the time it's took me to make this video, Chelsea at the weekend there absolutely demolished Wolves 6-2. So they're already starting to show that there's some potential in that team, and maybe Maresca might actually be a correct appointment for once. But I'd be interested in all of you to let me know what you think in the comments below. I just want to thank everyone who's made it this far into the video. If you have enjoyed this video, you probably will enjoy my other content. So please hit that subscribe button, it really helps me out. And I'll see everybody in the next video.